The reason I ask the question is actually some of the words he uses, any group who puts self-interest ahead of the common good. Does that perhaps give you any information on whether or not any organized opposition somehow or another becomes loyal or disloyal?
Can you repeat the question, please?
What is the definition of faction as I have quoted it from the Federalists? How would that impact your view of what loyal opposition, when loyal opposition becomes perhaps disloyal opposition?
Well, I think that I would have to disagree a little bit with Madison's definition of a faction. I do not think that necessarily all factions put their own interests above the common good. However, I do think that is where you draw the line between loyal opposition and disloyal opposition. For instance, those who have loyal opposition do support the common good with their opposition. You know, I look at the civil rights; they were looking for the common good of equality, whereas disloyal opposition is, you know, petty partisanship where people are just trying to keep their
But
party
don't
power.
you think if you ask anybody in any group like that, they're going to say they're seeking the common good? I mean, do you think there are groups out there that say, okay, no, we're being petty about this? Or I mean, my guess is you're going to get people saying, if people would just agree with us, the world would be a better place.
Well, that goes along with my theory that it's an opinion, such as like with the civil rights movement. Many Southerners and white people saw Martin Luther King as obstructing the way of society and just being selfish and putting black people ahead of everybody else. But in his quote, he says, an individual who breaks a law that conscience tells him is unjust and who willingly accepts punishment is in reality expressing the highest respect for the law. So he sees himself as doing what is best for society.
Okay, thank you. Well, as you know, this is a time where you usually get feedback to help you when you go to the next step. There won't be another hearing, but you'll have some big next steps to go to that you'll be going on. And we think, and the evidence suggests that because you participated in this program, you will be more engaged citizens and doing the important things that will really help us wrestle with these issues as the nation goes forward. You, of course, did a wonderful job. I mean, you're an excellent team, and you did extremely well. I thought we didn't come to any final conclusions on this because we never do. These are insoluble problems, but you wrestled with some of the key issues. I thought you brought in some interesting concepts that I wish we had more time to discuss. The idea that this is something broader than a partisan debate. You even went so far as to bring the public into it, but then double back and said, well, but the public really doesn't know a whole lot, which seems to me to create some problems. So I thought this was a wonderful discussion. Two little things that you mentioned that resonate with me. You talked about the killer bees in Texas. There's some evidence there that you're probably aware of, but it's some evidence that the senators were smarter than the representatives. The killer bees in the House in Texas went to Ardmore, Oklahoma. The senators went to Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's better to be in Albuquerque than Ardmore. And the other thing, of course, was that you talked about senators reading children's books into the records. Now, I'm currently a resident of South Carolina. It's a long tradition. Strong read a whole lot of stuff there, and I don't think we should disparage that even though Strong is allegedly dead. But again, very important. I thought you did a wonderful job.
There's no question as to why this team is here competing on Monday after a presentation like this. It was very, I think, thoroughly researched and thoroughly sourced in terms of specific examples from the recent and more distant history. The government shutdown during the Gingrich Revolution, I thought, was a particularly poignant example, especially in terms of responding to the question, when does it become unproductive? You know, when we can't get our passports and when the government can't do the very basic things that, regardless of our political ideas, we all need to get done. I think that was a very powerful example. One thing I would urge you to think about in terms of the Constitution and the ideas, I think you alluded to them, but specifically, you know, the advise and consent for appointments is one of the points you brought up, and I think that's an area where the founders clearly understood the value of loyal opposition, but it's a struggle. When does that cross the line? The First Amendment is rife with evidence of the founders' support for the loyal opposition, the right to assemble, the right to petition the government for redress of grievances, and some might even say that structuring a bicameral legislature is an aspect of loyal opposition. So lots of things to think about, and I know I'm going to continue to think about them thanks to all of the good ideas that you brought to the table. This was a very spirited discussion. I'm glad we had a chance to talk with you this morning. I wish you all luck.
I'll add, I will echo what they said and just make a couple other observations. I thought your prepared remarks were very effectively put together because all along the way you were defining your concepts. And then you brought in your supporting evidence in terms of your definitions. And that always helps to tie things together, give us what your perspective is. And so I thought that was effectively done. With respect to your example, I thought your supporting evidence was apt. They were appropriate, and you were thinking on your feet. They were not the same examples over and over again. You were reaching there and trying to bring in more. I was somewhat surprised that there weren't, in a way, deeper examples, more historical, like the Civil War or something like that. But you were definitely on top of the last 20 years in particular. But good job and good luck.